Hi guys, Andrew here with Headphones.com. Today we're going to take a look at an IEM that surprised me a lot. This is the Raptgo Hook. And this is a planar magnetic piezoelectric IEM, so very interesting driver technology. And it comes in at, I actually don't remember. It comes in at $239. So in this video, let's check it out. All right, so once again, this is going to be a bit of a quicker video, but I want to let you know sort of how I came to be aware of this IEM. This was actually sent to me a while ago, even before I went on a recent trip. And it was sent over by Lynn Soul. Now, I didn't ask to review this, but I am very glad that they sent this over. So big thanks to Lynn Soul for sending this along for review. Of course, they didn't pay me to say anything in particular about this. And they have no idea actually that I'm even doing this, but big thanks to Lynn Soul once again. All thoughts and opinions are my own. But I just wanted to mention that the reason why this is a bit surprising to me is because when it showed up, this was not on my radar like at all. And I saw that this had a planar magnetic and a piezoelectric driver, and I was thinking to myself, like, it's going to have a really weird tuning. It's going to be really strange, but at the same time, it's going to be some unique or interesting or esoteric driver implementation. And you do sometimes see this stuff both in IEMs and in over-ear headphones. So let's just say that my expectations weren't particularly high on this one. The Raptgo Hook, I think that's how you say it. The Raptgo Hook exceeded them. So briefly, here's what it is. Here's what it looks like. This is said to be open back. The cable, a little bit on the stiff side, but it's totally fine and functional. You get an interesting termination, which is one that I've seen done a couple of times. This is not your standard termination plug here. So basically it's a 4-pin connector here, and you do get, I've lost everything. So basically you get like a 4-pin connector here, and then you can hook up various different terminations. They do give you this case right here. And then the connector on here is currently 3.5 single-ended, but then they do also give you, there's another, this is a balanced 2.5, there's a Pentacon 4.4 as well. And then of course you also get a bunch of tips as well, as is tradition. I find the fit to be pretty good. It does sort of cover a lot of your ear, but generally I don't have any issues with that. It is, again, not as isolating, I think, as maybe you might be used to with IEMs in general, or at least not as isolating as I was used to. But apart from that, no complaints really on the build, the ergonomics. I think it looks pretty cool too. Again, that sort of green outside with perforations there, kind of cool. And then for the connector on this end, it's 2-pin. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the sound quality. And so I'm going to just start by talking about the graphs. Again, I don't have an IEM target, but just like I mentioned before, the coupler that I'm using here is the official Gross RAO 402 coupler, and this can't be or shouldn't be compared against the 0045 equivalent couplers that you see sometimes out there in the wild. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to compare it against a number of IEMs, a number of other ones that are around that price, like the 7 Hz Timeless and the Moondrop Kato. And then, so basically you'll be able to see how it sort of stacks up to that. I'll give you my thoughts, and then we'll move on from there. So let's just take a look. So what I'm showing you guys here is the frequency response of the Raptgo Hook, which is pretty good, to be honest, for its overall balance. This looks more, again, way more normal than I was expecting. You know, you see the marketing material around these kind of drivers, and you sometimes think, you know, that's really what the statement is about them. Not that the tuning is actually going to be solid, and it really is solid on this. So, you know, people talk about the 7 Hz Timeless as being this great value. Here is yet another one where you're like, wow, that sort of came out of nowhere. Subverting expectations. Really, this is kind of what you want in an IEM's tuning. I mean, you see a bunch of sort of raggedness up here. Don't worry too much about that. But the general sort of trend, the general balance, you can think of this as mostly neutral, right? So compared to the Timeless, let's just do that. You can see, again, very similar frequency response to the Timeless. The bass is about the same. This little sort of feature going on with the Timeless, that bump there doesn't exist on the Raptgo Hook. But for the rest of it, you know, it's very similar. You know, it has that same sort of mid-treble pronouncement, which for me, that's really the only thing I'm going to nitpick here with the frequency response. It is just on the edge of being a bit sharp there for me. I'm a bit sensitive to that region, you know, for the sibilant tones, the S's, F's, and T's. While this is not as intense as what I got on that Sennheiser IE600, it's still a little bit forward there for me, but I think overall for most music, this is going to be probably fine for most people. If you didn't have any issues with the treble on the Timeless, you're not going to have any issues on the Raptgo Hook. And I also just think generally the Raptgo Hook, again, comparing it to the Timeless, I found that the upper treble was it just sounded a little bit more balanced. Now, whether that's due to any kind of technical qualities or the frequency response that you're seeing here, I just found the upper treble to be a little bit more diffused sounding. I don't know, whatever that means. But moving on, let's see how this compares against the Moondrop Kato, which is right here. The Kato is, again, what I would consider to be a generally fair tonal balance. And you can see the Kato does have more going on here at the strongest part of the ear gain at 3K. Again, for me, all of these like really like good normal sounding IEMs that are, you know, well tuned, I do find them to be just a little bit on the shouty side personally. So it's nice for me that the Raptico hook is a little bit more relaxed there. I actually prefer the Raptico hook for the upper mids. Definitely not shouty on this one at all. But again, the mid treble forwardness there comes through on the Raptico hook, where it's a little bit smoother on the Kato. For the bass, this is close enough. And yeah, it looks like there's a little bit more on the Raptico hook, but it's within striking distance. And then let me just show you against another one here. This is in red. Oh, wow, the colors there are awful. Let me change that. So this next comparison here, this is the Theaudio Elixir. And I found the Theaudio Elixir to be actually very good. That's a single dynamic driver IEM. And the Elixir is what I would consider to be neutral, mostly neutral with just a little bit of mid-forward character to it, but not as a result of any particular pronouncement or elevation, but only really the relative balance with the treble, because it is a little bit relaxed in the lower treble, mid-treble area. And this is sort of where the Raptico hook is a little bit more forward. And so the Raptico hook for its frequency response is generally solid overall. This is mostly neutral with just a hint of treble spice. Let's call it that, okay? Overall, again, very surprised, pleasantly surprised at just how solid this is for its tuning. Is it as good as something like the Elixir or the Moondrop Kato? I actually think not quite in the treble, but for the rest of its tonal balance, yes. Is it as good as the Timeless? All right, so here's where things get interesting. Now, as I showed you, they're very similar to one another, but I do think that the upper treble is handled a little bit better on the Raptico hook, but for the rest of the frequency response, it's about the same. And the things to nitpick on the Timeless, I think, are the things to nitpick on the Raptico hook as well. Now, let's talk about the subjective stuff here. And again, this is a planar magnetic with piezoelectric, which is very interesting. And for all these things that are maybe not as easily recognizable in frequency response, I'm just going to sort of describe that now. So this has that similar advantage that other planar magnetic transducers tend to have, not always, but often tend to have, in the sense of really good instrument separation and control during busy passages. However, I don't think this is quite on the same level as the Timeless. Not quite. But where this is a little bit better is that this, to my ear at least, doesn't have that same sort of like plasticky planar magnetic timbre that sometimes shows up. And with the Timeless, I definitely noticed it. With this one, I don't. So this could just also be due to the slight difference in treble, the way that the treble is handled. But, it's pretty similar there. And it could also just be due to difference in, driver configuration as well. So if you found that the Timeless was a little bit on the plasticky side, this one I think is a little bit better there. But overall, I find the Timeless to be just a little bit more incisive. Lastly, one other thing to note here is that while the soundstage isn't anything crazy on this one, I do want to just comment that it does feel and sound a little bit more open, and I think maybe that's because it is. But it could just be like a psychoacoustic thing. But that's just part of the experience that I felt was worth noting. So let me give my conclusion here. The Raptico hook, it's really solid. The only issue is that the Timeless exists and is also less expensive. For me, that slight difference in mid and upper treble balance for the Raptico hook makes it a little bit more tolerable to listen to when compared to the Timeless, which I found just to be a little bit more spicy than this one. But overall, that can also change probably depending on the tips, depending on the ear shape, the canal, the fit, and all that kind of stuff. So take that with a grain of salt. And really, I have to say that, for efficiency for money, the Timeless is still the better value. So that's really how it stacks up. Again, really solid, completely subverting my expectations. Thumbs up from me. Anyways, that does it for this video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And of course, if you're looking for more information on IEMs or headphones, stay tuned to the Headphone Community Forum, which has all of the frequency response data at the moment, and also headphones.com for the written reviews that we also do. Anyways, that does it for this video. Thanks for taking the time to watch it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.